And we are live. Hey guys, this is Ruben Dua, and I'm here with Paul. And this is the Dub Action Online Summit, where we interview leaders from the community to talk about some of the most important topics in business. So today we're going to talk about something that's incredible for all businesses, whether it's small, medium-sized, or large, which is being sustainable. So Paul, if you could give a quick bio and let's get into the topic.
Thank you, Ruben. Sure, I'm Paul Fioravanti. I'm CEO and managing partner of Corval Partners. We're a Florida-based turnaround firm, management consulting firm. We've been doing this for 25 years. I've been doing it for about 15, and I've been in about 60 situations in 30 or so industries across a mix of businesses.
Got it. So, I mean, the most important thing that we can talk about right now that's relevant for all of us is how we can avoid failure as a business. What are some of the things that you have learned over the course of your 15-year or plus career in this field that could be actionable for us?
Well, recently we published a list of tips we call the 6 C's. And those 6 C's are really the things that you should be paying attention to in a time of crisis. Obviously, COVID, the pandemic is a crisis. And the 6 items are cash, costs, credit, communications, core operations, and customer experience and customer focus. So those are really kind of the blocking and tackling moves that a business should be focusing on. But if there was one takeaway from the things that I've seen across the mix of industries, is companies tend to focus on the past. They tend to write accounting summaries and sort of historical, history books on what happened. And that doesn't really help you when you're doing forecasts and you're trying to manage expectations and you're trying to right size your infrastructure to take care of your customers, to do the work that you do, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's services. They're a mix of industrial and service type businesses that we've been in. And I would say the one thing to focus on is the 13-week cash flow. And that's essentially a projection of the inflows, the outflows, and the general sort of modus operandi, if you will, of the business over the next rolling quarter. Oh, sorry about that. Clients never sleep. So the idea is that you're not looking in the rearview mirror. You're looking ahead, and you're trying to get a sense of what projections will yield. In that cash flow, you're drawing down revenue, so you're collecting receivables, or maybe you're getting advances on new projects. But you're also looking at how is the company structured in its delivery model. And I think clearly what the pandemic has shown businesses of all kinds is that we can have leaner structures. We can be more efficient. And obviously, the mode is toward working from home. That works generally with administrative type employees, but it's pretty hard to do manufacturing from somebody's living room. So there's clearly direct and indirect labor type functions that have to happen in operations. So I would say one more point on that is a lot of business owners don't really have a mindset for the categories of labor as inputs into their businesses. And it's important to keep in mind that the direct employees and the indirect employees are the ones closest and most involved with delivering the product or service to the customer. And everybody else is what we call SG&A, sales, general, administrative expense. And a common mistake that's made during lean times is management or ownership will make cuts in the direct and indirect side of the business, which really indirectly results in cutting revenue. What they really need to look at is their overhead and their administrative costs. So we also try to look at every opportunity to save money, whether it's reducing insurance premiums, reducing energy costs. There are a lot of other things that don't typically fall on the radar screen of business owners.
One of the things that I think a lot about is the difference between scale and growth. And the way that I define this is that scale doesn't require additional inputs to receive additional outputs, whereas growth does. So with growth, you might increase the number of sales reps to result in higher revenue, whereas scale, which is of course in what we see in a lot of technology companies, Clubhouse is one, and there's so many more examples even in the B2B space where there's scaled growth. How can we think about scaling our businesses, not really putting additional inputs in, staying lean, staying optimized, and then experiencing significant revenue growth? How can we think differently about this?
Well, it's the power of leverage through marketing communication, and obviously in the value proposition. One of the first questions that always has to be answered, whether it's a startup or a mature company, is what's in it for the customer? Like, why do they want to do business with you? And I think if you do a great job at whatever it is that you're doing, you provide a great product, you provide unique value in the marketplace. It's important to tell that story. It's important to tell that story to existing customers. It's important to tell that story to prospective customers. But what we see often is a bad business model doesn't get any better at scale. It's important to not replicate mistakes, and it's very important to protect two kinds of margins. The gross margin is one thing. So it's okay to say, well, we're selling a product for $10, it's costing us $6, therefore we're making 4 or making 40%. That gets you halfway through the income statement. It doesn't get you to net margin in profitability. And it's important to understand what your overhead is in delivering that, delivering that product or service. Frankly, I'm amazed at some of the valuations on some of the business models, but that happens far above my pay grade. But I think what investors are pricing in is the rapid pace of growth that some of these businesses can achieve through adoption. And obviously the power of social media has really been like throwing gasoline on the fire of a great business model. So, but it's important to, again, I can't stress enough, it's important to protect the margins, because if you're generating losses, that typically doesn't get better at scale.
Right. In fact, sometimes those problems get amplified and they open you up for a whole can of worms. Yeah, I really appreciate that note.
It's true.
Yeah. Yeah, we talk a lot about struggles for different businesses, and different businesses experience different struggles. How can we know what our struggles are from a business perspective? Sometimes we actually don't know. And I think that this is where we as learners, we as educators, we as executives, as business owners, as growth-oriented individuals, we need to be thinking about how realized are we with our pain points, with our struggles. Do we know about the challenges in our businesses? Do we not know about them? So could you kind of guide us on how, A, to become more self-aware of inefficiencies in our business, and then B, how to overcome some of those and increase and improve those?
I think that's a great question, Ruben. One of the important things that has to happen in any business is to take the emotion and the subjectivity out of it and make it about the data, make it about the numbers, and not get caught in the trap of sort of the big picture of the story that you're trying to write, but really looking critically at what the KPIs are of the business, key performance indicators. And it might be simple things like, how many new customers did we sign up this week, or how many new product pitches did we make this week? And you have to build your own kind of funnel that determines what those success factors are in time. And again, I think it's critical to understand where you're going with the business. The other huge advantage is bringing in a new set of eyes, whether it's an advisor, whether it's somebody you trust, just to say, hey, do me a favor, take a look at this, data. I may be missing something. Very commonly, we go in and turnaround situations, and we're not experts on any given industry. Like, I went into a pharmaceutical company that was run by a group of pharmaceutical veterans that they just didn't, they had sort of myopia, and the board had myopia, and they didn't see a lot of the problems with the business, probably because they were too close to it. And again, I think a lot of industries overvalue their own industry experience. It's important to get people from the outside, whether it's an advisory board or it's a small group of people that you trust, to take a look at objective data and weigh in on it. Obviously, there are some things out there like SCORE. There are some other resources where you can sign up with an organization that will kind of build you a board of advisors or a board of directors, depending on what size your business is. But it's okay to ask for help. And again, all the different subject matter experts have a place at the table. It's not just the CPA, it's not just the management consultant, it's not just the lawyer. I think it's important to get people that understand human resources, understand culture, understand sales development. One of the most common, this is going to sound crazy, but one of the most common denominator failure points that we see in businesses that either leads them to needing to be acquired or to a distressed situation, or it may be a business that's bought out of a distressed situation, such as by a private equity firm. But a common one is they don't pay attention to sales. They don't pay attention to customer relationships. They're very poor at marketing. I was in a situation recently as an interim CEO, and the industry I went into had 9 global operations, 2,100 employees, and they had a sales force of 4 people, which didn't make any sense at all. So again, placing a huge priority on developing customer relationships and telling the story of the business, that's much more important than layers of overhead employees that really are just thick administration.
And final question for you is, how can we do a better job of aligning our team members for a common goal, a common purpose, and then having very realistic compensation or bonus plans to drive that? And what I mean by that is that I've worked at companies where the marketing folks got compensated and bonused on the number of bookings, and the support staff got compensated on the number of support articles written, sales as clients closed, finance as money saved. And yes, it's optimizing at the individual level, but it's not optimizing at the ultimate level, which might be revenue or decreasing churn, increasing profitability. How can we do a better job to align and optimize there?
I think it's important to do an overlay where you take the organizational chart, you take the org chart, and you overlay, and it might be as simple as you blow it up, you stick it to a wall, and you draw on it. Sometimes the most basic things are the things that work. But overlaying the org chart with the deliverables for a given, silo or compartment of the org chart, and it might be things like in a construction services group. Obviously, you have things like new permits, right? That's kind of the first step in the assembly line of building anything, or zoning approvals. In a manufacturing business, it might be things like defect rate. And all of the people in the parts of the organization ought to have a team share mechanism, so that it's not just the salespeople that are getting incentive compensation. It's not just senior management, but everybody has some of their income in a, tied to a risk reward type relationship. But it was an excellent question that you asked, because it does vary across industries. One of the things to keep in mind is that margins in industries vary wildly. We have a client that manufactures like a wellness product, and the gross margins are very high. They're 70 or 80%, but most of their cost is in the delivery structure. In other industries, like I grew up in a supermarket business and a retail and wholesale food business, which I wouldn't recommend to anybody because the margins are so challenging. We mentioned construction and services. Those are typically very thin margin type businesses. If you're building a bridge, a highway, a cell tower, a solar field, anything like that, it's a pretty cost intense, thin margin kind of a business. But again, how do you define success? You define success. Like in the pharma industry is a great example. Their chief metric is what they call OTIF, on time in full. So if Merck or GSK or Pfizer is going to the market and they're ordering 100 million pills for some particular prescription drug, they want to make sure that their patients can rely on the the integrity of distribution, and that those prescriptions are shipped on time in full, no defect rate. Obviously, if we're consuming prescriptions, something integral to our health, we want to make sure that quality is extremely high. So there are certain variances across industries as far as what is acceptable quality. Obviously, if you're making $150 bicycle, you're a little bit looser on the defect rate than you would be if you're making artificial heart, right? So quality is a matter of affordability within an industry silo. But again, to your point, even dimensions like quality, accuracy, safety, those ought to be incentivized as well as far as compensation goes.
And where can folks learn more about you and your business?
We have a website. It's Corval, spelled with a Q. It's QORVAL.com. We've been doing this for 25 years, and my partner, Jim Malone, who founded the firm in 1996, has run 6 Fortune 500 companies. And we have a great group of subject matter experts across a variety of disciplines in our little boutique firm. But we work all over the place. Very seldom do we have the luxury of working on a local project. But again, that's us, and that's me. And I'm always happy to help people, even if they're not likely candidates to be clients. I'm always happy to help customers and people and relationships of my network as well. So if there's a way I can help somebody, I usually can point them in the right direction, whether it's us or somebody else. Everybody's going through a lot right now. So, we all need to do what we can.
Well, Paul, thank you so much for joining us in the Dub Action Online Summit. Appreciate you.
It's great to be here. Thanks so much, and be safe and well, Ruben.
Thank you.